Kim Cummings, and Eggsy, Neil Eggsy. And we welcome them to the board. We will now call the roll to determine if a quorum is present. When your name is called, please indicate by stating here. Would the executive director please call the roll?
Certainly. Anadike? Benison?
Here.
Conrad?
Here.
Cummings? Idges? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Is that Idris?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat it?
Who are you calling Neil Idris? I'm one of the new board members.
I'm having a hard time understanding you. Are you on a headset?
I'm not.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Idris is here.
I cannot make out what you're saying. I'm sorry. Would you just pronounce your last name one more time for me? I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
It is Idris.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, I don't know if you heard Cummings present.
Yes, I have that you're here. Thank you, Ms. Cummings. Johnson?
Here.
Montano?
Right here.
O'Toole?
Here.
Madam Call, except Chika and Dike, so we have a quorum.
Wonderful. At this time, I'd like Ms. Noshbish to go over the changes we can expect since we have to do this virtual, which, by the way, worked out well for me because I had over 12 inches of snow in Winchester yesterday.
Wow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you all. This was originally going to be an in-person meeting, and we had to change it to a virtual meeting. So I appreciate the board and the public's patience with us as we move through the virtual meeting. The law allowing for fully virtual meetings during the pandemic places special obligations to ensure we continue to promote meaningful public access and participation. The meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on our website. We ask you to keep your video on, but it is not a requirement. It is a requirement for all board members to be able to hear each other's voices. Please mute when you are not speaking. The meeting must be suspended for any broadcast interruption until public access is restored. All votes must be recorded in roll call fashion. We will do so alphabetically by last name, so please be ready when your name is called. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. The first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
I second it. Scott Johnson.
I'm sorry, who was the first?
Montano Joseph.
Thank you.
And Scott Johnson seconds the motion.
Scott for the second.
If not, we the vote will call the roll.
Okay, I don't believe Mr. Anadike had joined the call. Larry, approval of the agenda. We're doing roll call. Benison?
Yeah. Yes. Aye.
Conrad? Cummings?
Yes.
Agis?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Montano?
Yes.
Meridian?
Yes.
O'Toole?
Yes.
Approval of the agenda is unanimous, Madam Chair.
Very good. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes. Do I have an motion to approve the minutes?
Scott Johnson here, so moves to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second by Martin Meridian.
Is there any discussion? If not, Director Bell, call the roll.
Benison,
Aye. Yes.
Conrad,
Aye.
Cummings,
Yes.
Edgis,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Montano,
Yes.
Meridian,
Yes.
O'Toole.
Yes.
Motion unanimous, Madam Chair.
Wonderful. Then the motion is adopted and the minutes are approved. Our next order of business on the agenda is public comment. Commenters will have 5 minutes to address the board. The board is receiving public comments, however, the board is not required to respond to public comments. Ms. Nosbis, would you please introduce our first public commenter?
Yes, we have 15 individuals signed up for public comment that cover 4 of the 7 professions that we are looking at today. I am going to, 2 professions only have 1 comment each, and so I'm going to do those first, and then we'll go to the professions with multiple comments. So first reporter, commenter, if Mr. Robin Biedenbaugh would like to address the board for 5 minutes, and sir, I'll be using the time, and we're asking commenters respect the 5 minutes. I'll ask you to stop when we hit 5 minutes, and it'll be the chair's prerogative if you're in the middle of a comment. Are you ready, sir?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I'm ready. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Robin.
My name is Robin Biedenbaugh. I'm providing comments today on behalf of both myself as an affected professional, as a wetland delineator, and as a representative of the Virginia Association of Wetland Professionals. I want to say I won't take up much time today. I want to thank the report's authors and the board for the diligent and thorough work that was done in researching the issues and preparing the report. I'm very pleased that the report's authors recognize that the Virginia PWD certification and the National SWS certification are not equivalent certifications, and concluded that the Virginia certification is the least restrictive degree of regulation necessary to protect the public. And we sincerely hope that the General Assembly will take the report's findings into serious consideration as they evaluate whether to continue the certification program. The Virginia Association of Wetland Professionals was the organization that originally recognized the need for a certification for wetland delineators almost 25 years ago. It took us 10 years to get the certification program up and running to where we got a sponsor in the General Assembly to sponsor a bill to introduce the certification program. The whole program was really necessary because there were the late 80s, early 90s, there were a lot of lawsuits being filed against regulatory agencies, against practitioners who were not qualified to do delineations. It affected the development community. It affected the permitting cycles. Anyway, we did determine that it was necessary to have a certification program to allow the public to have access to people that are trained and qualified to do wetland delineations. Since the program has been in place, I don't think there's been a single lawsuit against anyone performing the wetland delineations, the certified delineators, nor have there been lawsuits against regulators for enforcing their definition of the delineation boundaries that have been done by certified delineators. So I just want to say thank you, and we hope you'll accept the report's findings, finalize it, and it'll go on to the General Assembly pretty much as written. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Biedenbaugh. Next for public comment, Michael Feldenberger. Are you on the line, sir?
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Michael Feltenberger, and I'm here on behalf of the Virginia Association of Community Managers. These firms represent communities throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. We service an estimated of 375,000 homes in common interest communities. These firms employ a combined total of 700 management professionals and an additional 600 employees and support staff. We strongly believe that the regulatory program put in place needed consumer protection and does not represent an undue burden on the profession. The benefits to Virginia consumers far outweigh the regulatory burden on community association managers. We believe well-articulated entrance and experience standards for a profession increase quality of performance. A regulatory program inspires consumer confidence by setting standards and offering a compliance process which protects the public. Continuing education requirements support and recognize the need to remain current with the developments in a dynamic profession. Standards of performance attract new, qualified, and eager professionals to an underappreciated but well-established profession. Regulation creates standards for accountability for fiduciaries who handle funds of Virginia homeowners. Community association management companies provide financial management where we manage and collect, disperse, and manage finances of associations with multi-million-dollar reserve funds and innumerable transactions. Community managers prepare budgets, periodic financial reports, and balance sheets. Community managers forecast expenditures and work with volunteer leaders to ensure the reserves are adequate to fund expenditures. Community association management firms coordinate and oversee maintenance, repair, and replacement of capital components. They range from landscaping to multi-million-dollar complex physical plants. Community association managers must understand and implement procedures to ensure proper maintenance. And governance. Community association management firms guide volunteer leaders through complex governance matters. Balancing the demands of community members. Community managers must be aware of statutory requirements for open meetings, conduct of membership meetings, and statutorily imposed standards for transparency. The Virginia Association of Community Managers supports and encourages continuing regulation of community association managers in its current form. We're glad to provide additional information that will be helpful to the board for your review at your convenience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feltenberger. Next, we're going to move on to landscape architecture. And first on our list to speak is Mr. Billy Almond.
Good morning. My name is Billy Almond. I'm a licensed landscape architect practicing for over 42 years in the Tidewater area. I'm the managing principal of a 30-person multidisciplinary firm, including land surveyors, civil engineers, and landscape architects here in Virginia. Our work includes the design of the public realm, directly affecting the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. Today, I'm representing the Virginia chapter of the American Society of Landscape Architects, an organization that represents Virginia licensed landscape architects and those pursuing licensure upon graduating from a Virginia University program. ASLA Virginia has reviewed the BPOR draft report findings and recommendations regarding the continued licensure of landscape architects, and ASLA Virginia supports the recommendation that licensure of landscape architects is justified as the least restrictive degree of regulation necessary to protect the public. We want to thank the board and the staff for all of their efforts on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Almond. Next on the list, I have Elizabeth Herbrun.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kathleen, Madam Chair, and members of the board for the opportunity to provide comments. I'm Elizabeth Hebron, the Director of State Government Affairs for the American Society of Landscape Architects, or ASLA. ASLA believes that licensure of the practice of landscape architecture is essential to protect public health, safety, and welfare, and states across the nation uniformly agree, as landscape architects are licensed in 52 jurisdictions. ASLA also recognizes that licensure is the appropriate statutory process by which an individual meets the legal requirements of education, experience, and examination to demonstrate minimal professional competency. And competency must be ensured due to the scale and scope of the landscape architecture profession. Practice includes planning, designing community master plans, multimodal transportation corridors, parks, and outdoor recreation spaces, water and stormwater management projects, and projects that help communities prepare for and recover from the effects of climate change and natural disasters. Additionally, stewards of the environment, landscape architects design critical infrastructure projects in a manner that both protects public health, safety, and welfare and limits the negative impacts of development on our urban and rural environments. The continuation of licensure in Virginia will offer consumers assurances, both private and public consumers, that landscape architects will still be able to meet their needs with solutions that protect public health, safety, and welfare, and ensure the practitioner's ability to lead and compete in the regulated marketplace. Once again, on behalf of the ASLA National, I appreciate the opportunity to state our support for the BPOR recommendations to continue licensure for landscape architects. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hebron. Next on the list, I have Zachary Drega from CLARB.
Good morning. I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to provide comments today. I'm Zach Druga, Manager, State Government Affairs and Advocacy at the Council of Landscape Architectural Registration Boards, or CLARB. CLARB has spent 50 years developing, administering, and advancing examinations to ensure the competency of landscape architects obtaining licensure. The current exam administered by CLARB, the ALRE, is a highly complex and technical exam on par with the ARE for architects and the exam for certain engineering professions such as civil engineering. CLARB also works with our member licensing boards, including a multidisciplinary board here in Virginia. While some overlap exists, landscape architecture is a unique profession, and landscape architects' expertise and knowledge on a multitude of complex design issues is critical on licensing boards. Virginia is an environmentally diverse state, and landscape architects enable society to develop while still protecting the natural and built environments. This includes the coastal communities at risk in the Commonwealth due to changing climate and resulting changes to the environment. Removing licensure and the voice of landscape architects from the Virginia Board for Architecture, Professional Engineers, Land Surveyors, Certified Interior Designers, and Landscape Architects would have significantly and negatively impacted the environments throughout the Commonwealth, as well as the health, safety, and welfare of all Virginians. As a result, CLARB supports the findings that licensure is the most appropriate, least restrictive form of regulation for landscape architects. On behalf of CLARB, thank you again for the opportunity to speak today. I will yield back the remainder of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Druga. Next on the list, we have Terry Clements.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments regarding the continued licensure of landscape architecture in Virginia. I'm Terry Clements. I'm a professor and chair of the landscape architecture program at Virginia Tech and a licensed landscape architect. Across the United States, the culmination of a landscape architecture education rests in earning a professional license, the signature credential for practitioners of landscape architects in the United States. State licensure provides emerging professionals with the credentials to pursue what they have spent many years studying. The Bachelor's of Landscape Architecture program at Virginia Tech is a rigorous 5-year degree program. The Master's of Landscape Architecture, offered at the University of Virginia and at Virginia Tech, requires 3 years to complete. These degree programs are accredited by the Landscape Architecture Accreditation Board, which ensures that all students learn the range of skills and knowledge associated with the professional practice of landscape architecture across the U.S. Other speakers have already addressed some of the range of practice, so I'm not going to speak about that today. However, upon graduation, students understand that to advance their professional careers, they need to earn a license so that they will have the minimum credential to compete for private and public project work in an increasingly regional and national market. These moves also establish their professional networks that will sustain them throughout their professional practice lives. I faced this issue when I graduated, and I moved to a state with licensure so that I could gain my credential. I did not return to my home state and have not since. Students will move to jurisdictions that give them the most opportunities to begin their career as a recognized professional. Graduate students often choose their universities based on the state's recognition of the profession. And I worry that minimizing regulation of landscape architecture in Virginia could encourage students to leave the Commonwealth for education and later for beginning their professional lives. I thank the board for the opportunity to state the support of the landscape architecture programs from the University of Virginia and at Virginia Tech for the BPOR's recommendation to continue licensure as the appropriate level of regulation for landscape architects. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clements. Next, we have registered Mr. Andy Scherzer. Mr. Scherzer, are you on the line?
Ms. Nostrich, I'm really attending to watch the proceedings. I was not scheduled to actually speak through our ASLA delegation. But I do sincerely thank BPOR for their recommendation that our profession continue to be licensed in the state. And I do feel it is essential for us to be able to be productive professionals within the Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Scherzer. Next on the list, we have Sean Ballone. Sean Ballone, are you on the call? Okay, next on the list, Mr. Robert McGinnis.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm not going to repeat what has been presented already. I'm just here as the principal author of the ASLA Virginia white paper that was submitted as a justification for continued licensure, and I'm available for any questions should there be any. Thank you again for all the hard work put towards that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. That concludes commenters for landscape architecture, and we're moving on to certified interior designers. First on the list to speak is Lauren Early.
Madam Chair and members of the board, my name is Lauren Early, and I'm here on behalf of the American Society of Interior Designers regarding the importance of continued regulation for interior designers in Virginia. Thank you for allowing us to comment on the board's draft report entitled The Evaluation of the Need for Continued Regulation of Certain Professions and Occupations by JLAR. Though we understand that the General Assembly, not the board, is responsible for making changes to the statute, the board's report will be studied by the General Assembly in future decision. We appreciate many aspects of the board's draft report. However, there are several sections of the draft report we'd like to address and propose changes to in the best interest of the public. First, the report indicates that private NCIDQ certification could serve as an alternative to state regulation, which is inadvisable. CIDQ is not an investigatory body, nor does it maintain the resources to adequately police the profession to advance the health, safety, and welfare of Virginia consumers. Tom Banks of CIDQ, the Council for Interior Design Qualification, will address this point more squarely in a moment. We respectfully ask the board to amend its recommendation to the General Assembly that the NCIDQ certificate program could act as a substitute to state regulation based on Tom Banks's upcoming commentary. Second, the report further indicates that the practice of interior design presents at least a moderate risk to the public health, safety, and welfare. Although the report correctly notes that certified interior designers affect the health, safety, and welfare of building occupants and other third parties, we disagree with the draft's report's conclusion that the potential risk of harm is only moderate. Catherine Setzer, a forensic interior designer and researcher who also serves as chair of the Ethics and Professional Responsibility Committee for ASID, will address the importance of continued regulation on the health, safety, and welfare of the general public, providing specific instances of harm, which will emphasize why the risk is not moderate but high. Jim Bone, a certified interior designer and design manager, will talk more about safety hazards to the public from interior design services in light of COVID, a phenomenon that has arisen since the JLARC report was issued and which deserves special attention when considering whether the General Assembly could or should eliminate the interior design certification. Catherine Setzer and Jim Bone will provide clear examples of how interior design can routinely pose a significant or high potential risk of public harm. We ask that the final report reflect this risk as indeed high and not just moderate. And finally, public commenters expressed concern that deregulation could result in significant economic disruptions. The board's attempt to redress these disruptions do not adequately justify the suggestion that the General Assembly could substitute NCIDQ certification for state certification. This is absolutely true for a couple of reasons. Current certificate holders would lose autonomy to practice without oversight from other licensed design professionals. Losing their professional autonomy not only jeopardizes ownership over their intellectual property, but also threatens their economic opportunities to have ownership in multi-practice firms, all of which Ali Allred, a certified interior designer, will address from an entrepreneurial perspective. Finally, maintaining a state certification program keeps Virginia competitive economically, because with top design schools and programs here, students are enticed to stay and practice when there are adequate market assurances and opportunities for them to compete fairly with other licensed and or certified design professionals. Lila De La Rosa, a design student at the Virginia Tech School of Architecture, will address this point more squarely later on. Suggesting that Virginia should eliminate the interior design certification would be contrary to the national trend. Currently, 27 states and 2 jurisdictions have established some sort of title protection for interior designers. The report incorrectly indicates that Florida is a licensed state. Starting in July of this year, Florida established a voluntary registration similar to the statute we have here in Virginia. And our direct neighbor to the south, North Carolina, the interior design profession recently reached an agreement with the Board of Architects to establish a joint board and a voluntary registration program, similar again to the statute we have here in Virginia. The North Carolina General Assembly will be considering that bill in the upcoming legislative session. Most importantly, no state has ever gotten rid of its established interior design statute once it's been codified. Given what I've just laid out, in addition to what you'll hear from other public commenters from the interior design profession, we respectfully ask the board in its final report to reflect the following findings. 1, NCIDQ certification cannot serve as an alternative to state certification. 2, interior design creates a high risk of potential harm to the public. And 3, removing the state certification will result in economic disruptions for current certificate holders. Thank you, Madam Chair and Board, for allowing me to comment today.
Thank you, Ms. Early. Next, scheduled to speak is Mr. Tom Banks.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Tom Banks. I'm the CEO for the Council for Interior Design Qualification, CIDQ. My organization develops and administers the NCIDQ exam. Our exam is a 3-section, 11-hour competency assessment of interior designers' knowledge as it pertains to protection of public health, safety, and welfare. And because my organization was referenced several times in the BPOR report, I wanted to join you today to clarify several items and ask the board to consider amendments for its final report where my organization is concerned. So just to clarify, CIDQ does not represent interior designers or the profession of interior design. Our members are the jurisdictional regulatory boards that oversee the practice of interior design. And our mission is to help those boards, like the ones functioning so well here in Virginia, to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public by providing a means of assessing the related knowledge and competencies of interior designers. So the NCIDQ exam is used by every regulated jurisdiction in the United States except California as one of the requirements for state licensure, certification, or registration of interior designers. The BPOR report proposes that our exam may be an adequate, quote, may be an adequate alternative to state regulation. And while the educational and work experience requirements to sit for our exam may be similar to those required for state certification, passage of our exam is not a substitute for state statute and regulation. First, an NCIDQ certificate does not naturally or automatically grant any business rights or practicabilities under state law. The existing interior design state certification in Virginia does that. And the BPOR report states, deregulation could result in significant economic disruption for current certificate holders because certified interior designers would lose autonomy to practice without the oversight from a licensed design professional. So interior designers would need to hire consulting architects or professional engineers to stamp their work at increased cost to their businesses and clients. That's an accurate and troubling statement. And I think if you are to confirm JLARC's incorrect recommendation that the Commonwealth could eliminate state certification and instead rely on NCIDQ national certification as an alternative, that's going to leave designers across the Commonwealth without this practicability. That's a step backward that could also harm consumers. And my organization can provide no remedy for that problem. Moreover, concerning any role in protecting the public health, safety, and welfare as a policing or investigatory party in Virginia, CIDQ's investigatory and enforcement role is limited solely to issues related to our examination, things like cheating or question harvesting, that kind of thing. And as an organization with a total staff of 5 people, we simply don't have the capacity nor directive to oversee the practice of interior design and serve the public's interests in the way that a state board does. Specifically, we have no process for reporting, investigating, or sanctioning incompetent practice by individuals who have passed our exam. And as in every other regulated jurisdiction, as with most other professions, we look to the state board to fulfill that function as it is doing so today. Lastly, BPOR report acknowledges that the unregulated practice of interior design poses a risk of public harm and further cites the National Fire Protection Association's recognition of the criticality of interior designers' work. Given that fact, it's inadvisable to suggest that the Commonwealth could eliminate state regulation for interior design. And on behalf of the Council for Interior Design Qualification, I would respectfully ask that the board remove references to CIDQ as an adequate alternative to state certification in its final report, and instead refute JLARC's incorrect recommendation to eliminate state certification and rely on NCIDQ certification as an alternative. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions should you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Next on the list, we have Catherine Setzer.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in public comment this morning. I'm Catherine Setzer, an NCIDQ certified interior designer, researcher, and educator. I serve as a technical advisor for the development of several codes, including the National Fire Protection Association's NFPA 101 Life Safety Code, currently used in every U.S. state. I'm here today to ask the board to revise its final report to the General Assembly regarding its assessment of the risk that interior design can pose to the public health, safety, and welfare. I wish to address the evidence of present, significant, and high risk of harm to Virginia consumers and the essential role of interior design profession in public fire and life safety. The last 20 years of my professional and academic career have been devoted largely to the realm of forensic design, that is, to the analysis and research of design projects that have failed. I've witnessed and have studied in depth the impact that improper design in interior spaces can have on public health, safety, and welfare, and the serious and high potential for public harm from unregulated interior designers. The proper selection and specification of interior materials, finishes, and content are essential to an occupant's ability to safely exit a building during a fire or other emergency. This is the domain of the Virginia Certified Interior Designer. According to the National Fire Protection Association, the proper selection of space content is a primary determinant of whether accidents become tragedies. In fact, the NFPA states that interior finishes and furnishings in public assembly spaces have a greater impact on the protection of life and property than any other element, with the exception of the actual fire ignition source itself. More important than on-site fire protection, such as fire alarms and sprinkler systems, more important than exiting requirements, such as maximum occupancy number, arrangement of exits, even emergency signage and lighting. It's simple. The faster a fire develops, the greater the threat to occupants of a building and their ability to exit safely. The appropriate selection of interior content slows flame and toxic smoke spread across floor, wall, and ceiling coverings and allows additional time for occupants to relocate within or evacuate from a building. This is not a small problem. Despite continual updating of building codes, the fire and death rates in the U.S. remain among the deadliest in the industrialized world, and the cost in lives and in dollars is staggering. Virginia is no exception. Virginia's death rate from fire comprises 3% of the overall U.S. death rate. On average, 26 Virginia civilians die, that's more than 2 each month, and 42 more are injured each year in commercial and high-risk building fires at a significant cost of $4.3 million in property loss to Virginia taxpayers. The evidence expressly points to interior content as consistent, direct, and significant contributing factors to the loss of life and property, and are shown to exacerbate the hazards to occupants. The fact that the BPOR has not disciplined a Virginia interior design certificant in the past 5 years does nothing to alter this risk, nor does it change the fact that the certified interior designer has the unique expertise and to address these issues. Given this threat to the public, I also disagree with the board's assessment that the NCIDQ exam can serve as an adequate alternative to state title protection. Most NCIDQ certificates are not active certificate holders, meaning they have only passed the exam but have not necessarily followed up with the continuing education required to remain active. State certification ensures that these Virginia CIDs remain current on the latest information to safeguard public safety. I respectfully request that the board revise its findings to acknowledge these facts supporting the necessity of certification of interior design. Interior design, in fact, presents a high risk of public harm. And furthermore, I ask the board to modify its report to indicate that the involvement of other regulated design professionals, building codes and inspections, and or the NCIDQ exam certificate without state oversight are not nearly sufficient to mitigate hazards to public health, safety, and welfare. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, we have Mr. Jim Bone.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you today regarding the certification of interior designers for the Commonwealth of Virginia and the BPO board's response to the 2018 JLARC report. I'm Jim Bone, Design Manager for Corinne Clinic Design and Construction Management. It's a department of Corinne Clinic, and I've been here 34 years. I speak to you today as a certified interior designer. We design and or assist with both healthcare and healthcare-related projects with multi-million-dollar budgets. Currently, Corinne Clinic has over $500 million in capital projects approved. As an interior designer, we have a vast combined influence on the health, safety, and welfare throughout the Commonwealth and beyond. We impact over 30 hospitals, 650 outpatient facilities, Veterans Administration facilities, and numerous owned, operated, or facilities partnered with local and state governments. I'm here to ask you to revise the report to state that interior design presents a high, not moderate, potential of harm to the public. I'd like to update the board on the state of practice and need for continued certification in light of the 2019 COVID pandemic and vaccine rollout, which has highlighted the need for continued interior design title protection. The draft report acknowledges our focus on public spaces. However, I believe it minimizes our regard for protection of the public. Our staffs must have a working knowledge of and be able to reference appropriate materials and work with appropriate authorities regarding building codes and regulations administered or governed by the International Building Code, the Virginia Department of Health, the Virginia Board of Pharmacy, the Americans with Disabilities Act, local building officials, the Joint Commission, the Facility Guideline Institute, Fire and Life Safety, BIFMA, LEED, Healthy Hospital Institute, and the International Well Building Institute, to name a few. Our employers and clients have come to value the expertise our certification guarantees them as we design a myriad of projects impacting the safety afforded a well-designed environment. Without this certification, there would be no guarantee that the person responsible for coordination of the many technical aspects of interior spaces would have the qualifications, including education and the experience to professionally produce functional, safe, and healthy environments. We have joined the behind-the-scenes frontline workers during the pandemic to redefine a healthy and safe environment to reduce the spread of the virus. As you may know, our facilities are quite technical in structure, infrastructure, equipment, staffing, and processes. They are becoming more so with each passing day, and we play an important role as a member of the team. As we have navigated the pandemic, we've been required to use our expertise and our research to help redefine and redesign the healthcare environment of the future today. As certified designers, we have stepped into many processes and design voids illuminated by COVID-19. Screening has had a significant impact on our facilities. We worked with our facilities team to develop facility circulation paths for both internal screening spaces and drive-through operations in order to keep the clinicians and the public safe. We quickly evaluated products flooding the market touted as pandemic-friendly in order to advise our clients and organizations on the best products to ensure safety for the staff and communities we serve. Our certified interior designers have been involved in reallocation of existing spaces for staff respite areas and expand work zones in order to provide approved social distancing for staff and the public. Recently, we created a specialty COVID-19 infusion suite requiring special consideration be given the condensed schedule required for quick and easy cleaning and disinfecting of the finishes and furnishings between patients to avoid the virus spread. Sadly, thousands are dying each day due to COVID. When seeking treatment or comfort, many of these people will see the inside of a clinic, hospital, or nursing facility designed by a Virginia certified interior designer. Vaccines are rolling out. Places where you and I may receive the vaccine have likely been space planned or reconfigured by a certified interior designer to accommodate the vaccine storage and administrative requirements. The knowledge that these spaces have been designed by one of us should bring comfort and security to Virginians across the Commonwealth. Therefore, I respectfully ask the board to amend its report to designate interior design as posing a high potential risk to the public, and it would be inadvisable to suggest in your final report that the Commonwealth could plausibly remove state regulation for interior design. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Bone. Next on the list is Ali Alred.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today regarding the Commonwealth certification of interior designers, and specifically the Board of Professional and Occupational Regulation's response to the JLARC report. My name is Allie Allred. I am a valued Virginia certified interior designer with Work Program Architects in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm speaking today as president of our Virginia and West Virginia chapter of the International Commercial Interior Design Association and on behalf of the nearly 500 certified interior designers here in the Commonwealth. We thank you for the work you put into the current report. I ask that you please consider the following in your final comments. I'm here to speak specifically about the economic disruption for CIDs in the Commonwealth that would happen if you were to repeal our professional certification. If revoked, my work would require the signature and approval of another regulated professional. Doing this would mean I would effectively be forfeiting my own intellectual property, which is catastrophic to my business. Currently, business officials and inspectors review the quality of this work, so this only complicates the process by adding another entity not presently necessary. This suggested change in the law degrades the value of our work, not only from a business perspective, but it unnecessarily shifts risk to another business, all of which costs business entity owners and the general public, including state, local, and federal entities, time and money. And having to contract out or hire regulated professionals will severely impact my profitability. So specifically, this is a direct hit to 96% of interior firms having 4 or less employees. This change infers that CIDs are not capable of performing the important work we have been doing successfully as qualified professionals for decades, without any complaints. Other regulated professionals rely on us to be experts in our field, just as they rely on other design team specialists for their area of expertise, especially in large, complicated projects. They depend upon us, and we want to attract the best CIDs to live and work right here in Virginia. We are presently part of this regulated design and construction team with a proven track record that holds us accountable as respected team members held in the same high regard as our peers. Current regulation has enabled us to develop this value, and deregulation will have a direct impact on our value. Further, under the current law in the Commonwealth, the various business structures require that 2/3 of ownership be retained by those that are certified or licensed in the profession being offered. Required bylaws explicitly state that unregulated board members cannot have a voice in professional practice matters. This is where we work. CIDs will, in effect, lose our value and lose access to current and future ownership in firms we have worked for years and decades to gain access to. These laws also require branches of firms to have designated leaders who are certified or licensed in the profession being offered. If CIDs are deregulated, this imposes a direct restriction on our ability to grow business right here in the Commonwealth. We have successful businesses here that have been made possible by the rights we have dutifully earned. There are over 1,200 interior design establishments in Virginia alone. 83% of these businesses are women and minority owned. Eliminating the certification of interior design would crush these small businesses and entrepreneurs after a particularly difficult year for small business. A year in which we have been called upon with urgency as experts, in which we have worked tirelessly to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public in response to COVID. As you are all aware, Governor Northam has directed the executive branch agencies and institutions in the Commonwealth to target 42% of discretionary spending on certified small businesses and set aside for micro business. CIDs help the state meet both of these standards. SWAM partnerships are strategically formed to meet this goal on large public projects. Large firms most often have the appropriate level of capability to manage the scope of these projects, such as hospitals, university buildings, and so on. They strategically seek out SWAM certified CIDs and firms to partner with their teams in order to meet the aforementioned requirements. This work builds the portfolio of CIDs and enables them to bid on work not only in Virginia, but on federal projects as well. Those are the projects that help us sustain our entire economy, and many of these folks that work on them are based right here in Virginia. While federal work does not exclude interior designers and contract work from states without regulation, this process requires them to seek certification or registration for work taking place in states where it is regulated. This is a major issue since the Washington, D.C. has interior design registration, and many Virginia-based interior designers bid on that work. With the existing registration here in the Commonwealth, this process is much easier with comedy. Without it, CIDs would need to seek out school transcripts, documentation from CIDQ, and so forth to become registered in each jurisdiction for which they want to bid on contracts. This process is highly inefficient and costs the small businesses additional time and money which other certified design professionals would not have to incur. In closing, I would like to share with you that our chapter of IIDA's board of directors are 43% people of color. 93% of us are women, 70% of which are working mothers, including myself. We are the business leaders the state has been working to support and elevate. We are the future of growth in Virginia, and we have come so far. Please consider the impacts to our businesses, to our families, as well as the value of our work that directly impacts the health, safety, and welfare of the public every day. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Allred. Next on the list is Ms. Lila De La Rosa.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak this morning. My name is Lila De La Rosa, and I'm a fourth-year student at Virginia Tech, and I'm here to voice my concern regarding BPOR's statement in its draft report that national certification could serve as a substitute for state regulation for interior designers. I've been a resident of Virginia all 21 years of my life. I'm lucky to have access to so many outstanding universities in this state. Virginia Tech's interior design program and the School of Architecture and Design is among the most challenging and selective in the university. Until this year, there's been an 100% job placement rate or grad school acceptance. Our average GPA is a 4.0, and it's more difficult to get into our program alongside architecture and engineering than into this university in general. This semester, we received 230 applications into our program, which is double the amount we typically receive, usually with a target of 30 spots. It is Council for Interior Design accredited and has been in the top 10 programs the most years out of 175 accredited programs across the US. Eliminating the certification program for interior designers in Virginia could not only impact our program's success, but the rankings of Virginia interior design programs nationally, pushing prospective students to attend other schools and states with governing statutes, certification programs, and practice rights for interior designers. Upon graduating in the spring, I know my Virginia public education will have fully prepared me for a career in interior design, with a great understanding of its profound effect on lives, health, and safety, and the welfare of all of us. I have studied and worked very closely with my peers in architecture, starting out at an equal playing field during our first year in our interdisciplinary studio. Somehow, once the major split our second year, and as we graduate and enter the professional world, people see our disciplines as vastly different in their necessity and the risk each poses to the public if unregulated. To my knowledge, JLARC hasn't studied the need for regulation of architecture or engineering, but conversely, interior designers have to constantly prove why their work is just as important to the safety of public building occupants and why that regulation is necessary. I have hopes of very soon pursuing full-time employment as a certified interior designer in Virginia, and one day owning my own firm in the state and creating jobs and hiring diverse employees. Affirming that the General Assembly may be able to eliminate the certification threatens these goals. Without our state certification, the Commonwealth will experience the brain drain for interior design talent. Why would my peers and I stay in Virginia to become a practitioner if there are other nearby states where I could more easily have an ownership stake in a corporate firm, or where I could stay on my own plans for permit? If I want to be a certified interior designer and a business owner, why would I stay in a state that would require me to hire consulting architects or engineers to stamp and seal my work, putting me and my clients at a financial disadvantage? After my future colleagues and I have devoted 4 years to Virginia Tech, we agree that we would be more likely to remain in Virginia and seek to be a contributing designer in the Commonwealth if our practice rights were protected through the continuation of this certification program. Though I fully intend to demonstrate my competence by taking the private NCIDQ exam, NCIDQ certification will not grant me the abilities to practice to the fullest extent of my abilities and engage equally in the design marketplace. Only the General Assembly can give me those rights, and they have done so through the establishment of the Virginia Interior Design Certification Program. We spend over 90% of our lives inside a building, which is about 22 out of 24 hours each day. Interior design is not only meant to inspire people in that time, but positively impacts the quality of our lives by prioritizing health and safety. The state's recognition of that impact through a certification program is one of the reasons why Virginia is highly respected as a place to study and practice interior design, and why so many out-of-state students come to our design schools. In closing, I ask that in your final report, you affirm the need for the Virginia Interior Design Certification Program so I can practice to the fullest extent of my abilities and pursue my professional goals here. There are no alternatives to that certification, not the NCIDQ certification, not professional association membership. I chose my university and entered school relying on the fact that someday I would be able to pursue the Virginia Design Certification, and I did not come this far in my education to be deprived of my full opportunities in the design field. For these reasons, I ask the board to amend its draft report statement that national certification could serve as a substitute for state regulation for interior design. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. De La Rosa. And that concludes our registered public commenters for today.
I would certainly like to thank all the members of the public who took time to appear today and give us their input. We really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much. We're now ready to move on to the review of the JLARC recommendation study. Ms. Nosfish, will you go ahead and present the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the record, the Joint Legislative Auditor, known as JLARC, published a report on BPOR in October of 2018. And in that report were included 2 recommendations that we review the need for continued regulation and or certification of 7 professions under BPOR. We filed our preliminary report as required 2019. Our goal this year was to hold public hearings across the state. Due to COVID, we were unable to do that. So we posted for public comment for the month of September in Town Hall, and we received 1,000 comments regarding the need for these 7 professions to continue with licensure and or certification. What the board received in their agenda packet was a draft study. We are required by December 31st of this year to file our final study with the General Assembly. It will be the General Assembly that makes the decision whether the professions are to be regulated or not. We did find several typos that were corrected since this document was given to you, and also the December license number of regulants has been posted, and so that was also updated in the document since you have received it. And unless Ms. Brose-Vaughn, our director, wants to add anything, we can open the floor for discussion, Madam Chair. You're still on mute, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. The floor is open for discussion.
Madam Chair, if I may. So after hearing, and thank you all for your testimony today, I really appreciate it. After hearing your comments, I'm definitely leaning on the side that, you know, especially coming from the executive director of NCIDQ, he doesn't want his organization to have the responsibility of overseeing or governing this body. Is there a way that we can amend that to stipulate that the state board should continue the responsibility of overseeing the interior designers?
The pleasure and the will of the board. Yes, sir.
If I may, Madam Chair, certainly the board may do that. I do want to point out that the statutory criteria to consider whether there's an alternative to state regulation addresses issues of whether there's an alternative that assesses minimum competency. Less so whether there is an equivalent alternative that administers an entire regulatory program. Your report does address that CIDQ does not have an enforcement mechanism. Should you wish to perhaps have a combination of narrative that addresses both of those points, perhaps strengthening the statement that addresses a lack of sanctioning or enforcement capability by a private entity, together with clarity that an alternative addresses that minimum competency assessment and not an alternative to the full breadth and scope of a regulatory program, that may be a way to address some of what you heard while also hewing to the board's charge to assess along that statutory criteria those 10 questions, if that's helpful.
Absolutely, it is. And I appreciate that. I think my concern is that, I just don't want to kick this can down to the legislature, and then they might see it in the same way that we're viewing it, which is, especially if we have the same people testifying. I mean, if you have the executive director of the NCIDQ saying that, one, they don't want the responsibility, and two, they don't have the capability to oversee governing this group of professionals. I'm just concerned that we're going to be essentially kicking the can down the road, or the responsibility down to the legislature, where we can address it right here. So I would ask that we amend it to reflect that it should be the state board that should continue the responsibility of overseeing interior designers as it relates to the degree of harm. I'm not a public safety expert, so I'll defer to anybody on the board, but I think moderate risk should remain.
So I would suggest you stick to one motion at a time.
Sure.
And with regard to your motion to amend to, if I heard you correctly, and to amend the report to make clear that the board finds that there is not an alternative to state regulation.
That's correct.
And
That's what
I'll leave it to the chair to call for a second.
Are there any other comments before we take a vote on the motion?
Madam Chair, you need a second for that motion.
We have a second to the motion.
Kim Cummings, I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Can we go ahead then and take a roll call? Vote.
Benison,
Aye.
Conrad, Cummings,
Aye.
Effie,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Montano,
Aye.
Meridian,
Aye.
O'Toole.
Ryan may be on mute.
Mr. O'Toole? I ask that the board give us a moment to see if Mr. O'Toole was dropped from the call.
Absolutely.
One moment, please. Thank you, board. An email from Mr. O'Toole. He had to log off. He will rejoin us at 11:40 if We're still on the call. Thank you. We still have a quorum with that, Mr. O'Toole, Madam Chair, and the vote is unanimous with the board members still on call. You're on mute, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there additional comments or suggestions from the board? Hearing none, then we will move forward. Do you have anything else, Director or Madam Director, or should we just go ahead and move forward now?
I'm happy to try and answer any additional questions if there are any.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments? All right. Then I think we should go ahead and we'll move forward with the presentations done. We have one revision that was approved. Do we have a motion to adopt the study?
Madam Chair, if
Revision.
and that motion would be with the typos and the changes to the December 1st regulant counts that I mentioned previously.
Yes. Is there a motion to adopt the study with the changes and the change reflected today and the other changes that were cleanup changes from staff?
So moved.
Yeah, motion to adopt.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I saw Mr. Benison first and Mr. Montana second, so
Second.
would that be the first and second?
All right. Are there any additional comments or questions? If not, we'll call the question. Would you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Benison.
Aye.
Conrad.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Edges.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Montana.
Aye.
Marie.
Aye.
And Mr. O'Toole is not on the call. That's unanimous, Madam Chair. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate everybody's work on this and the input that we received on this today from everyone, including the public. The next, I believe in the last item on our agenda is the conflict of interest forms.
They will be emailed to the board members, and if you could just sign them and send them back to us, we can take care of that bit of housekeeping. And just one other item of business. Matt McKay, who's been the policy analyst working with us the last couple of years, that helped us on the sign language study and filing the preliminary study last year and did the lion's share of work for this study. Unfortunately, it's the end of this month, so I just wanted to thank Matt for his contributions and let him know he'll be missed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything, do members of the board have anything else they'd like to discuss or bring up before we call for a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, just want to wish everyone happy holidays. Stay safe out there. Good seeing everyone.
And we really don't need a motion, Madam Chair. If you just want to call it, we won't have to do the roll call for adjournment.
Madam Chair, if I may, it appears that we have a question from a member of the public who may have arrived after public comment. It would, of course, be your prerogative whether to reopen public comment.
I guess I would defer to the board. Should we, this has never come up with me before. So, any feeling from the board? Should we take the comment from the public since it came in late?
You can just make the call, Madam Chair.
All right, well then let's hear the comment, please.
I believe Ms. Gray is muted, and I do want to emphasize before you start speaking and when you unmute Ms. Gray, because of the virtual nature of this meeting, commenters needed to register by yesterday, so that perhaps might be the confusion, but let's certainly hear from you. Thank you.
Can you hear me all right? Okay, I can't see you. Now, do I see you? No. Okay, well, I can't see me. So, all right. If you'll forgive me for just a moment, I've been frantically trying to let you know I was here. I'm sorry, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. So thank you very much. And I still can't tell if you can see me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about the value of continuing licensure for professional soil scientists and me personally. I am Nan Gray. This is my license. It hangs on my wall by the office front door like a reassuring license on the wall of a lawyer or a dentist office. This signals to a client that extraordinary, pertinent qualifications exist and are regulated. My mother-in-law knew how hard I worked to achieve this license while raising a family, and she had the license framed immediately when it arrived in 2015. You have a group of knowledgeable, purposeful, ethical, licensed professionals who are already no cost to the Commonwealth. To be less disciplined, with all due respect to the Commission, is a national security of natural resources issue. And certainly the Commonwealth has a vested interest in soil science. We have soil surveys completed of every county in the Commonwealth. However, those are very general soils surveys. They're not site specific. You have to actually measure the soil on a site to know what you have. We have an obligation to protect the Commonwealth's native soils because we know how important soils are to buffering the effects of climate change worldwide. We know if we stop disturbing intact soils that we can slow climate change. Did you know that? Licensed professional soil scientists also know about radiation, soil avoidance, erosion and sediment control, wetland and stream crossings, although the wetland delineators are very important profession on their own. They know things, we're generalists, possibly, and they're very specific, so they are very important. We know about slope stability, landslide concerns, loss impact of soil, sediment pollution, and karst cave systems. We know about surface and subsurface and seasonal groundwater flow. We know about water flow interception, habitat loss, vegetative productivity, ecosystem benefits, and limitations associated with depth to bedrock. Please continue licensure for professional soil scientists. The Virginia Association of Professional Soil Scientists is the organization representing licensed state soil scientists and the proper application of soil science in Virginia. Proper soil evaluations are critical for site-specific engineering and/or construction planning. For example, pardon me. This is especially critical for large pipeline planning and installation. For example, because pipeline projects intercept areas like karst systems and steep slopes adjacent to streams and other sensitive receptors. We see severe erosion on soils can undermine a pipeline, jeopardizing pipeline integrity. Soil failure can be explosive. Knowledge of soil resources can play a huge role in public safety. And we already know we need to protect healthy soils. Everybody likes something organic. So we have a need for licensed professional soil scientists. We cover a lot of different parts that feed you and don't feed you. I mean, we take care of waste and we take care of building foundations and we We have a lot to do with the health of this planet. VAP supports licensure. We have a lot of training. I certainly support licensure, and so does my mother-in-law. Please continue licensure for soil scientists. That would be a change to your recommendation for the General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gray.
Yes, thank you so much for your input. Before we adjourn the meeting, I would also like to say I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday and a wonderful new year. And please, please be safe and well out there, because these are difficult times and I know we're all dealing with a lot. So stay home. There being no other business involved before I declare this meeting adjourned at 11:20.
Wait, can you please change what you're going to tell the General Assembly? Can you hear me? Are you going to vote on soil science?
I beg your pardon?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Are you going to vote on keeping licensure for soil science?
I don't believe there was a motion to go back and amend the report.
Oh, please change that recommendation. I've worked so hard for licensure, and so have all the other soil scientists. For years, we have a 3-year apprenticeship for our incoming people so that they can work with another soil scientist before they take the licensure exam. We had 82 comments to keep licensure. I thought you all saw those comments to keep soil science.
Madam Chair, if I may, and Ms. Gray, it's now the board's discussion. Those comments are reflected in the report, and the report, as the board has and the public has, assesses against the statutory criteria as to what the least restrictive level of regulation may be. The board, to this point, has endorsed that. I don't recall hearing a motion to.
Please make a motion. Someone make a motion to keep licensure for soil scientists.
Ms. Gray, I have to ask you to refrain, and public comment is concluded.
Thank you very much for your comments, Ms. Gray. Again, I will say we will do it now at 11:22. There being no other business to be brought before the board, I declare this meeting adjourned at 11:22. Thank you.
I don't understand that.
Thank you all. Happy holidays.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays. Stay safe.
Where should we get our box lunches from?